Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to Paytm Money Talk. And today we've got a very interesting topic: how to invest in small cap through mutual fund. I'm Neeraj Gogoi, your host for the talk. Now, this is a very interesting topic. In fact, it's so exciting. If you have seen the market today, small cap 250, they have made a new high today, closed at the highest level today, and the excitement seems continues. It's continuing since April this year. So here we have got a fund manager who is an expert, Mr. Chirag Mehta, and we'll be talking to him how the whole story looks like. Now, is there any scope? What is the future look like for small cap investing? We are going to discuss in details with him for that. But before we start that talk, let me tell you what the Paytm Money Talk is all about. Now, Paytm Money Talk, as we always say, that we try to bring new ideas, new strategies, new investment, instruments, and discuss in details so that even newcomers to the market, as well as experienced investors, can also learn and continuously improve the investing game. So here, what we are trying to do, and we have been doing it consistently for last 2.5 years, and I'm very excited because I'm sure many of you are also excited to know more about what is the future of small cap investing. So this talk is powered by Paytm Money. As I told you, we've got a very special guest today. He is Mr. Chirag Mehta. And let me give a brief introduction about him. He is a Chief Investment Officer and Fund Manager at Quantum Mutual Fund. Chirag has more than 19 years of experience in the financial market. He specializes in the field of alternative investment strategies. Chirag is also a qualified CAIA, Chartered Alternative Investment Analyst, and an MBA in Finance. He currently manages 4 funds, largely in the field of alternative investment that include gold fund, a multi-asset fund, and an equity fund of funds. He joined Quantum in 2006, and Chirag also named amongst top 40 fund manager globally under the age of 40 by CityWire UK in 2017. So it's a great pleasure to have Chirag today. Chirag, welcome onto the stage.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you for inviting me, and it's always a pleasure having interaction with you.
Absolutely great, Chirag. Great. Last time we spoke about a few months back, and we talked about the market, and the market have changed. In fact, what a new addition to the market is a little bit more uncertainty, right? The war already was going on, Ukraine, Russia war, and then this war started, Israel and Palestine. It seems getting complicated day by day. What seems to be, getting over very soon, seems, more might get into a bigger something, not good. So taking that into backdrop, how do you think that the market looks like at this point of time, geopolitically, economically, or of course, absolutely, from the market side?
Sure, you spoke about geopolitical, Neeraj, and it's little distant from India currently, and but it could impact Indian markets from two perspectives. One is, there could be inflation because if oil price go up, then it could result
Hmm.
into inflation, which we have seen in inching coming down. But it could hamper that. If crude price starts going up, then probably inflation pressures will increase in Indian economy, and crude has a bigger determinant factor on Indian markets overall. And
Correct.
second is from a flow perspective. So if there is a lot of risk aversion that starts because of a conflict, then probably there could be foreign investors who could start withdrawing money from Indian markets as they would do with many emerging market economies. and therefore there is a home bias when there is any conflict that happens and money goes from emerging markets to back to the developed markets. So that is one thing that could happen. But as far as the Indian economy is concerned, barring the inflation pressure, there is not going to
Hmm.
be a too much impact, because we are not a export driven economy so much. We are more dependent on internal consumption, and internal story looks very very robust. For example, there are good levers that we are seeing in the economy which are very, very strong. For example, real estate. Real estate has been doing very well. And the driving factor for real estate has been nothing but affordability. Prices had
Hmm.
remained stagnant for a long time. And given that incomes were rising for people, affordability has come back. And even if you ask me, at the 9% home loan rate, there is still affordability in the home purchasing segment. So overall, given that affordability is a driving factor, and when real estate does well, it has a cascading impact on the overall economy, because you don't just buy real estate, you don't buy a house, you buy furnishing, you buy electronic goods, you buy white goods, etc. And there is a lot more that comes along with real estate. And if real estate does well, we see many sectors of the economy start doing well. So that is one strong lever. And second is, as government has got leeway from higher revenue generation through GST collections, etc. They are spending it. They are doing a lot of capital expenditure, and that is driving another capex cycle from the private space as well. So government did the heavy lifting, and now that's become a vicious cycle which is leading to more and more investments within the economy. So we think these two levers are very very solid. Of course, you ask me, rural is still struggling. Everyone is hopeful of its recovery, but hopefully given an election year, we might see some tailwinds for that sector coming through. So overall, if rural revives, which is everyone expectation is, and then probably we have very strong growth engine even starting further. So we are very very hopeful on the economy, at least for next 2 3 4 year perspective. We are somewhere in the mid cycle of the economic growth that we are seeing, and probably some more headroom for us to grow further.
That sounds very encouraging. In fact, another big encouraging factor is, small cap indices. They have made they close at all time high today. That. So, what is the driving factors? मतलब रुकने का नाम ही नहीं ले रहे हैं. Of course, we saw correction on the day. I think last Monday, after the
Yes.
breakout of the war, a good correction, and after that, it's continuous recovery. So how do you think small cap sectors, small caps doing, and why? What is the driving force? What are the factors that driving the small caps? And you said, of course, all these factors. Anything special for small caps?
Sure. So there is always a very recency bias when we look at things, right? So when we
Yes.
look at last 1 year performance in small caps, yes, they have delivered like 35 40% returns versus large caps giving 15% return. But if you map it out over a 10 15 20 year horizon period, small cap returns are either at par with large caps or slightly
Hmm.
above large caps. So that tells you that small caps come with a higher risk as compared to large caps, and therefore they should have a higher rate of return to compensate for the risk that you're taking. So commensurate with that risk, I think a large small cap long term performance is very much in line to what they should have delivered on a relative basis. But when we look at near term numbers, it gives you, whether this is for real or not. That is what we ask. And so if you put that in perspective, both the things, it tells you that small cap had to catch up, and they have caught up over last 1 2 years. So it's a catch up thing that they have done rather than really outperforming to deliver that long term performance that it should have. And these catch up can only happen in two cases. One is
Hmm.
when there is too much liquidity floating around, which makes you uncomfortable, but prices keep rising. And second, catch up can happen only when there is a earnings growth story going on in the economy. And this time, the economy is very, very robust. Companies are doing very well. Companies' earnings are increasing, revenues are increasing, earnings are increasing, and that is driving the stock prices. We had a period from 2016 till 2018 which was a liquidity fueled exuberance period, and that is the
Hmm.
time when stock prices, even small caps, were rising, going through the roof. But that time we were very very uncomfortable because nothing was happening on the ground,
Wow.
and earnings were not growing, and we were not too comfortable that time. And if you met us that time, we were one of the most bearish people out there that you have met, right? Now we are very, very bullish because we are seeing that earnings growth translate and that translate into stock market returns. So we are not uncomfortable with this rally. We think we are in a comfortable zone given earnings growth is more and more supportive.
Wonderful. It sounds very comforting. In fact, I was speaking to quite a few people, they have pointed out that every time there's a small cap rally, the minimum minimum rally that takes place around more than 90%.
Mhm.
90%. Now, so far, it has only given 35%, 35%. So lots of, scope to grow further. So again, I think Quantum is also coming up with a NFO on the small cap, right? So definitely
Yes.
would like to know, because as you said that in the previous small cap rally you were bearish, now you're bullish because of the earning growth. There are so many fundamental shift. Actually, we want to know more about that, and I think I would like to say that your NFO launched yesterday and it's going to continue till 27th of this month. So if you can tell us more about the nitty gritty of small cap investing through your presentation, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely, that will be my pleasure. And given that NFO is started, it started in an auspicious time, and I think it
Yes.
gives investors an opportunity to participate in small caps in a very meaningful way. So from that perspective, let me run a few slides and showcase how we are seeing this space and how we are approaching this space through a small cap fund. So, as you rightly said, the NFO period started yesterday, the 16th October, and it will last until 27th October. So, all the investors who are looking to invest in small caps, there's a great opportunity to invest during the NFO period. If we come to the next slide, that small caps, if you see, given the current definitions that persist for different categorization, market cap categorization, small caps is one of the largest opportunity sets out there. A
Hmm.
more than 85% of all listed companies now are known as small cap companies. Because of the definition, the way it goes is top 100 companies are large caps, 150 after that are mid caps, and anything from the 251st stock onwards is small caps. So given that, if even if I take a meaningful market cap of 400 crores and above to the 21,000 crore where the small cap universe starts, it is about 1,300 plus companies. So it is a very, very relatively large opportunity set that exists in the small cap world. If you look at the next slide, it tells you that the large cap universe is very, very skewed to certain sectors. The top three
Hmm.
sectors in large caps comprise about 66% of the total large caps index. But if you see small caps, it is relatively much lesser skewed as compared to the large caps. So what comprises 40% of the top sector in large cap, which is finance, it's only about 14% in small caps.
Hmm.
Importantly, it also gives you exposure to many budding emerging themes which are smaller today but likely and hopefully become much bigger going forward. For example, and these are the sectors where government has a lot of thrust in terms of making it grow big. For example, agriculture, tourism, transportation services, etc. These are the part of the small cap universe, but not present in the large cap. So some niche segments, some really promising segments are present in the small cap investment opportunity set. If we move on to the next slide, so, what emerging themes, sectors that we are looking at? Financial inclusion is a big theme. We saw Jam Trinity, which is Jandan, Aadhaar, and Mobile, that led to the financial penetration in India in a very significant way. If you see the number of bank accounts, demat accounts have kind of grown significantly over last many years, last 5-10 years, and that is because of the Jandan accounts being opened, facilitated by Mobile and Aadhaar that people had. So overall, in the financial inclusion theme, there are many things that are there in the small cap, but not in the large cap, like small finance banks, mutual fund distribution, broking, etc. So there are many themes. There is also a theme from a perspective in the auto sector, where there is a movement from ICE engines, the petrol diesel engines, to electric vehicles. So if you are an OEM and trying to grab a pie of, say, electric vehicles, you have a sure set of clients to lure to, or someone who's looking to buy any EV and trying to get a market share from the small sector that exists today. But if you are an auto ancillary company, You can cater to so many OEMs at the same time, and therefore the opportunity set, if you're in the right space, in the right segment, have a niche in your business, then probably you can cater to so many of them manufacturers, car manufacturers out there, and also to the export opportunity. Also, things like import substitution, electronic goods are significant portion of our imports. Government is trying to reduce those imports, and therefore it helps us. Then there is China plus one. Global manufacturing giants are trying to reduce their reliance on China and looking for more spaces to set up their factories, and India is emerging as one of the big beneficiaries of that. So overall, these are the many themes, including renewable energy, waste, water, etc. Those are the new emerging themes, which are very small today, but can grow significantly larger over a period of time. If we move to the next slide, many people confuse small businesses, small cap companies to startups. But startups though have a innovation disruption idea, but they have not yet proved that they can scale or become bigger. There is no proof of concept, whereas in small companies there is proof of concept. They are generating revenues, they are generating profitability, they are generating cash flows, and therefore they are more reliant companies as compared to startups. If we move to the next slide, you know uh, there is great potential in the small cap space, because opportunity lies from they are being very very under researched. If you look at
Mhm.
many large brokers in the country that service institutions like us, mutual funds, insurance companies, etc., out of that only a fourth of them, one fourth of them cover small cap space, whereas all of them cover large cap space. So there is lesser information dissemination, there is lesser discovery, they are unexplored in nature, and therefore there are more opportunities if you can spot them right. Second, they are very under-owned. Their ownership of institutions like mutual funds, insurance, etc., FIIs is very very low today as compared to the large caps. Then there is room for PE re-rating. Stock returns can come
Mhm.
from two things. One is earnings growth, and second is if the PE expands. So given that these are smaller companies, they're trying to prove themselves. As they showcase that they can consistently grow, they can consistently generate a return profile, and which will call for investors looking at that company. Here, this looks promising. Given that the large caps in this space trade at 20 times, and this company trades at only 10 times, there is scope that I can even buy it for 15 times, right? So that is called as PE re-rating, and therefore that could be one of the levers for growth or stock market performance for small cap companies. And they are very very innovative. They are early moving into that segment. They created a niche, they created a moat for themselves, and therefore they are not easy to disrupt. Of course, when there are opportunities, there are risks. What are the risks? That these are smaller companies, they might not be able to get the right talent, they might not be able to get the right enough capital to grow. That could be as challenges. And one peculiar challenge or risk in the small cap space is governance. Many
Mm.
times we have not seen enough of these managements. They have lesser listing history, and we don't know how the promoters will behave in different cycles, and therefore you need to have a lens in terms of looking at how these companies are from a governance perspective, and you can sift out the managements from good versus bad. So that is very very crucial. When you're trying to tap the opportunities, you also need to address the risk. So if you move to the next slide, the universe is growing significantly. The footprint of small caps is growing significantly. 250 first stock is where small cap starts. That 250 first stock, whichever it was, the market cap of that stock was around 2,500, 3,000 crores, around 2008, 2009, right? Today, that 250 first stock is about more than 21,000 crores. So the space is growing significantly. Even if you look at companies with more than 1,000 crore market cap, there are still 900 companies out there. So it is a pretty large universe and a growing universe that we have seen over a period of time. Next slide. So we see a few challenges, and we think that we can address those challenges in a better way. So there are 24 small cap funds in the country today in the mutual fund space. If the total AUM is close to 1.8 lakh crore, if you divide that by 1.8 lakh crore by 24, you get an average AUM of 8,000 crores. and therefore an average number of stocks in the portfolio at 80 stocks. That is what the portfolio size of these funds have been, and therefore average weight is 1.25%. So what has happened is, if you see, there was an article in Economic Times as well. In last 1 year alone, because of the size of these funds have grown, they have only increased the number of stocks. So number of stocks have anywhere in only last 1 year have gone anywhere between 10% to 30%. That is the increase that we have seen in number of stocks. So these funds have been managing a long tail risk, long tail portfolio, and therefore that emanates as a risk, because these portfolio positions have become very, very suboptimal in nature. And if you keep increasing the number of stocks, you tend to behave like an index, right? So if you tend to behave like an index, why one investor should pay an active management fee for something that is like an index? Also, if you see number of stocks with less than 1% weight are anywhere between 50, 16, even 90% of the stocks in the portfolio are less than 1% weight, which we call it very, very suboptimal. So they have very, very suboptimal weights, because if you have 0.5% weight in any stock, even if the stock doubles, if you are right on that stock, then you only add 0.5% return to the overall performance of the fund. So that's the problem that we are seeing with the many funds out there. And what we think is the right idea is to have a portfolio of 40 to 60 stocks only, not exceed that. And stocks with less than 1% weight should not be more than 10%, because there could be stocks which you are entering or exiting, and therefore they become suboptimal. But barring that, if you have right research, if you have right conviction, then there should be meaningful weights in the portfolio. Next slide. Also, another problem that we see is, we took the top 10 in the portfolios of many of these funds, and saw that what is the liquidity that exists in these names, in these top 10 stocks that they own. So we saw that many funds had 60-70% of the portfolio they will not be able to liquidate, or of the top 10 they will not be able to liquidate in 66 trading days. 66 trading days is a good time frame for any fund manager to enter or exit a position. This could differ from people to people, but we have seen internationally also been acknowledged that 3 months is a reasonable time frame. And 60-70% you're not able to liquidate in a portfolio, you're taking too much liquidity risk. And where you see like the fund D that you see, where liquidity is better, but they have moved, it is better only because they have moved into large and mid cap space. They're not largely in the small cap space. Out of the top 10, 46% is in the large and mid, and only 24% is illiquid. So if we add the two, either they have a liquidity problem, or they have a mandate problem, because they have moved from small cap to be in large and mid. And also, if you see, many of the funds, the least liquid in the top 10 position takes around 200 days, 500 days, and even 1600 days to liquidate those positions. So you are having very, very big challenge from a liquidity perspective, which shouldn't be the case. We think that any position should be at least be liquidated in 3 months time frame. That's our belief. Next slide. Also, if you see that, with very suboptimal positions, very small positions, 0.25, 0.6, 0.7%, they are large owners in the company. They hold a large equity ownership in those companies. So if you see, they, even at small weights, they are 7-8% of those companies' market cap. And if you see, those stocks are already illiquid. They are having 100 days, 160 days, 200 days, 1600 days to liquidate those positions. So already imagine a situation, stocks are already liquid, and imagine a large owner of that company trying to sell a meaningful stake, right? What will happen to the stock price? What happens in a sell-off? Going to the next slide. So our idea of a small cap fund, the quantum small cap fund, is going to be that liquidity and market cap are very important considerations. Understand that investors, when they invest in a small cap fund, you're already taking a little higher risk as compared to large cap investing, right? When you're trying to take that, you're taking that higher risk, that shouldn't be increased, or additional risk should be introduced, which are not because of the small cap investing, but over and above that small cap investing, like the liquidity risk. So you need to be very mindful of liquidity and market cap when you're investing in the small cap space. You need very strong research capability. We as a firm are, as a group, are around since 1990. We have seen many cycles. We have seen many of these managements, and therefore we think the teams that we have strong research capabilities to navigate the large opportunities that exist in the small cap space. We kind of have very strong governance and management quality checks. We have an integrity screen which helps us sift out which are bad managements, which are good managements. Because even if you have identified the right business to invest into, and if you don't have a good promoter, a good founder, then probably you as minority shareholders may not get the real return that you should have got with that investment. We think growth at reasonable price is a good approach in this space, because they are very high fast growing companies, and therefore you need to see that you pay at least a fair reasonable price for the growth that it offers. And therefore growth at reasonable price, because price is important from the perspective that it should keep some upside when you invest in those companies. It shouldn't be that everything is in the price, therefore there is no upside, no return for you. So moving on to the next slide. So I think you need to define your universe very, very well. There should be a liquidity threshold that you should adhere to at any point in time. There should be a market cap criteria that you should adhere to any point in time. And that is what we have defined in the offer documents as well. And if you look at the next slide, say, imagine if you're running a 5,000 crore fund, right? If you're running a 5,000 crore fund, and if your minimum weight is 2% any stock, you're investing 100 crores in that company, and you're investing 100 crores, and you need 66 trading days to enter or exit that position, you need a minimum liquidity of 1.5 crores, right? 1.5 crores is minimum volume value you'll require for you to trade without having much impact. And without having much impact, this is the total volume of that day. You can't be the total of the market on any given day. Assuming you're 1/3 of the market, your volume requirement at 5,000 crores capacity will be around 4.5 crores of minimum value traded that you will want. And I think a good risk management is you shouldn't exceed more than being 5% of the market cap of any company. And therefore, the market cap threshold that you'll require at a 5,000 crore fund size is minimum 2,000 crore market cap. So you need to be aware that, if the fund is not adhering to such kind of thresholds, then they are taking additional risk, which we will not take. We will want the portfolio to be liquidated, or any position could be liquidated in 66 trading days. And we will not want to be more than 5% owners in any company, because these are very, very good risk management tools that we can have to ensure that we don't take additional risk with small cap investing. Stock investing and liquidity are two different risks, right? We'll take the stock investing risk, and because of our strong research, we can navigate that. But liquidity is not in our hands, even as fund managers, right? We cannot control liquidity, and therefore we cannot say that any given point in time I'll get a seller, which is very, very difficult. And at a time when everyone is redeeming, selling out, that time liquidity goes down significantly. So you need to be aware of these risks and ensure you invest in a fund which adheres to these kind of thresholds. Next slide. So overall, our approach is very, very clear. It's a robust research process, as you see in this slide. We have a big universe to track, about 900 plus stocks. We'll narrow it down in terms of which companies are good, which have good business model, sustainable business model, good governance, etc. We'll narrow it down. Further narrow it down by deep diving in stocks that we like, who are looking very promising, who have good return ratios, who have good valuations, etc. We'll deep dive into that and study about 250 stocks. And out of the 250 stocks, we will make a portfolio of 25 to 60 stocks. So that is how we go about building the portfolio for you in the small cap fund. Next slide. Next slide. So I think, Neeraj, you would also have this question, saying that, why small cap now? Are we late to the party? So if you look at the relative small cap valuation vis-a-vis large caps on the left-hand side chart, it's still below the long-term average. This is average from 2009 till now, about 14, 15 years. And, it is still below the average. But, there is a gimmick in this slide, in this chart. I will not buy the period between 2016 to 18 because of the exuberance period. And therefore, you should kind of sift out these kind of time frames. And if you sift out that, we are slightly above the average. Right? Even if you look at on the right-hand side with a small cap vis-a-vis its own history, it looks below the average. But again, you'll have to remove that period from 2016 to 2018. and even after that it will slightly above the average. So it is not the period like 16, 18 where it's not touchable. We will be very, very uncomfortable during such times. But this time, if we think that there is earnings growth story going on, and given the large universe, 900 plus stocks that exist in the small cap world, we will be able to choose good opportunities which are fast growing, still available at a reasonable price, and therefore make you returns over the next 2, 5, 7, 10 years of your investments. Because there will be opportunities in the large universe. I don't have to choose a portfolio. I don't have to build an index which is 100, 200, 250 stocks. I need to select few 40, 50 stocks to build a good portfolio, which is possible given the large universe that exists there. And we are nowhere near the exuberance period that existed between 2016 to 18. So with that, I will come to the end. And if you like the approach, please do consider the Quantum Small Cap Fund, and happy to answer any questions that Neeraj you would have.
It's exhaustive. matlab, the way you have presented right from everything A to Z, it's really nice. In fact, I have some questions. In fact, मैं viewers को भी request करूंगा कि अगर कोई भी questions आपका mind में है, feel free, go ahead, type your question, and would like to pose that question to Chirag. Chirag, आपने बोला है कि 85%, okay, 85% of the stocks in the market, listed stocks, are in small caps. और इसका मतलब कि if you really have to invest on growth, so small cap is the only choice, right? Because large cap mein to there is only 100 stocks, right? And 150 stocks in the mid cap, very limited number. So the whole मैदान खुला है स्मॉल कैप में. तो नाउ इस पर्सपेक्टिव से कि अगर मैं एक इन्वेस्टर्स हूं तो कितना मेरा स्मॉल कैप में एलोकेशन होना चाहिए. Now, not should I have 50 to 60% of my allocation only in the small cap? What do you say? What do you think?
नीरज, हमारा मानना है कि कोई भी इन्वेस्टर का, बिकॉज एज दे स्टार्ट देयर इन्वेस्टिंग जर्नी चालू करते हैं, तो यू कैन नॉट, ऑफ कोर्स, बिकॉज स्मॉल कैप में अपॉर्चुनिटी ज्यादा है, रिटर्न्स ज्यादा है, मगर रिस्क भी उतना ज्यादा है, राइट? सो वन नीड्स टू कंसिडर एंड बी कग्निजेंट ऑफ दैट रिस्क. तो हम मानते हैं कि 10 to 15% एलोकेशन टू स्मॉल कैप इज वेरी, वेरी डिजायरेबल. और जैसे आप समझते हैं इक्विटी मार्केट्स, अगर आपको लगता है कि आपको ज्यादा रिस्क लेना है क्योंकि आपको रिटर्न्स ज्यादा चाहिए पोर्टफोलियो के लिए, तो आप थोड़ा ज्यादा रिस्क ले सकते हैं. बट अंटिल देन, वो समय आने तक 10 से 15% एलोकेशन स्मॉल कैप में सही रहेगा, रादर देन अदरवाइज यू विल बी टेकिंग टू मच रिस्क विदाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग. बिकॉज स्मॉल कैप में ग्रोथ है, बट देयर कुड बी पीरियड्स व्हेन इट फॉल्स आल्सो वेरी, वेरी शार्पली. तो वो एक ध्यान में रखना चाहिए. उसके लिए आपका जो टाइम होराइजन है वो थोड़ा लंबा रखेंगे तो यू विल नेवर बी डिसअपॉइंटेड. सो एक अच्छा फंड चूज कीजिए, उसमें लंबे समय तक होल्डिंग कीजिए, 7-10 ईयर्स तक. और जैसे आप, जब तक आप नहीं समझते वो स्पेस, 10-15% एलोकेशन रखिए, और उसके बाद चाहिए तो आप थोड़ा बढ़ा सकते हैं. सो ओवरऑल दैट इज हाउ वी विल टेल इन्वेस्टर्स टू अप्रोच इट. एंड इवन लार्ज कैप में, जैसे अपना इंडिया इज अ ग्रोथ स्टोरी ओवरऑल, तो लार्ज कैप में भी यू विल गेट रीजनेबली गुड रिटर्न्स, सो इट्स नॉट दैट यू विल नॉट गेट. अल्फा शायद बना सके कि ना बना सके, it depends on the fund manager you choose, but otherwise they will also give you reasonable returns. But if you want to enter into companies that will really grow well over a long run, जो आज काफी छोटी है मगर कल जाके बहुत बड़ी बन सकती है, जैसे काफी सारी आज की टेक कंपनीज है, 90s में कोई नहीं जानता था उनको. They were not known at all. They were just coming into the market. They were like many large companies who did their IPO in 1994. So they have grown to mega caps today. So वैसे ही काफी अच्छी identify कर सकते हैं, and they can become really big going forward. But overall, until you adjust to that space or understand that space, 10 to 15% allocation एक सही allocation होगा.
मतलब 10 to 15% allocation is good. Now, my next question is for risk. You said risk in the higher side. Now you gave that small cap today is going to be the large cap tomorrow, right? Now, here is a question of mortality. You talked about IT sector. Okay. Now, IT sector, we have seen, in 2002, 2003, there are lots of companies. You remember companies like Himachal, DSQ, Global. So, बहुत सारे companies तो मर चुके हैं, right? So what is the possibility the same thing happens in this small cap segment also? And किस तरीके से नाउ उसी क्वेश्चंस का एक थोड़ा अनदर एक्सटेंशन होगा, ये होगा, एक ही बार मैं पूछ लेता हूं कि एज ए स्मॉल कैप इन्वेस्टर, do you suggest that I should invest directly? I should buy stocks directly from the market, or I should go preferably through a mutual fund route?
श्योर, एक्सेलेंट क्वेश्चन नीरज। मोर्टेलिटी रेट काफी, क्योंकि हम हमेशा सक्सेस स्टोरी ध्यान में रखते हैं। जो कंपनीज
Mm-hmm.
मर जाती हैं उनको कोई पूछता नहीं, देखता नहीं, बात नहीं करता है। सो देयर विल बी मेनी कंपनीज हु विल नॉट बी एबल टू डू गुड। इसके लिए जो फंड मैनेजर का काम है टू अंडरस्टैंड क्या वो सस्टेनेबल बिजनेस मॉडल है, क्या वो डिसरप्ट हो सकता है, क्या उनमें क्या रिस्क आ सकते हैं। सो ऑल दैट आई थिंक इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू अंडरस्टैंड, एंड आई थिंक दैट इज व्हाट वी डू। हम कंपनीज को
Mm-hmm.
मिलते हैं, हम ग्राउंड वर्क करते हैं, चैनल चेक्स करते हैं, ग्लोबल मार्केट्स में कैसे कंपनीज इवॉल्व हुई हैं वो देखते हैं। सो ओवरऑल बहुत सारी चीज रिसर्च में
Mm-hmm.
जाती हैं, तब हम आइडेंटिफाई कर पाते हैं अच्छे स्टॉक्स। अच्छे मतलब खाली रिटर्न्स की नहीं, बट सस्टेनेबल कंपनीज होनी चाहिए। अगर कल आके कुछ नया चीज आ जाता है इंडिया में और वो कंपनी डिसरप्ट हो जाती है, कि गवर्नमेंट रेगुलेशन चेंज हो जाता है तो वो कंपनी डिसरप्ट हो जाती है, वैसा नहीं होना चाहिए स्मॉल कैप में। तो वो एक रिस्क ज्यादा होता है। और कंपनीज, हमने काफी सारी कंपनीज देखी हैं कि उनकी ऑर्डर बुक उनकी मार्केट कैप
Mm-hmm.
से ज्यादा हो जाती है, यू नो। तो जब भी
Mm-hmm.
वो चीज होता है, इट बॉइल्स डाउन टू द एबिलिटी कि कंपनी वो ऑर्डर पूरा कर पाएगी नहीं, एग्जीक्यूट कर पाएगी कि नहीं। तो एग्जीक्यूशन एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज होता है कंपनीज के लिए, और कई बार वो एग्जीक्यूट नहीं कर पाते हैं। सो ओवरऑल ये ध्यान में रखना चाहिए कि उनकी क्या टीम्स है, उनके पास एबिलिटी है एग्जीक्यूट करने के लिए कि नहीं, उनके पास उतने पैसे है कि नहीं ऑर्डर एग्जीक्यूट करने के
Mm-hmm.
लिए कि नहीं। ऑल दैट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। एंड एट द सेम टाइम ये सब करने के बाद भी अगर प्रमोटर कोई क्रुकेड निकला, तो यू नो माइनॉरिटी शेयर होल्डर्स, हम सब माइनॉरिटी शेयर होल्डर्स होते हैं,
Mm-hmm.
हमारे पास प्रॉफिट्स नहीं आते हैं, सारे प्रमोटर्स के पास चले जाते हैं। सो यू नीड टू बी वेरी वेल अवेयर, बी अवेयर ऑफ द गवर्नेंस ऑफ दीज काइंड ऑफ कंपनीज, क्योंकि उनकी हिस्ट्री इतनी नहीं है। आज अगर 25-30 साल से कंपनी ऑपरेट कर रही है, लिस्टेड है, तो आपको मालूम है कि उनका चलन कैसा है, वो कंपनीज कैसे बिहेव करती है, उनके प्रमोटर्स कैसे बिहेव करते हैं। छोटी कंपनीज में हिस्ट्री कम है, तो आपको मालूम नहीं
Mm-hmm.
आता है कि कौन से साइकिल में प्रमोटर कैसे बिहेव करेंगे।
Correct.
वो ओवरऑल दैट इज ऑल वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, एंड इन दिस स्पेस ये सब चीज से रिस्क काफी आ सकता है। इसके लिए गो विद समवन जो दिन दिन ब दिन इसको स्टडी करते हैं ओवरऑल, और दे आर ऑन टॉप ऑफ दोस कंपनीज, एंड देयरफॉर दे अंडरस्टैंड दैट स्पेस वेल। तो आई थिंक rather than in the large cap world, even if you do your own investing,
Mm-hmm.
it's still okay. There are lesser chances कि आप गलत जाएंगे, पर इसमें
Mm-hmm.
गलत जाने के चांसेस बहुत ज्यादा होते हैं। इसके लिए आप
Mm-hmm.
म्यूचुअल फंड रूट के थ्रू आए, वही बेटर होगा। एक अच्छा फंड
Absolutely.
मैनेजर आइडेंटिफाई कीजिए जिनको ये स्पेस की समझ है। और ओवरऑल आज 45-46 फंड हाउसेस है इंडिया में, सिर्फ 24 के पास ही स्मॉल कैप फंड्स हैं।
Mm-hmm.
सो ये कहता है कि नॉट एवरीवन वांट्स टू गेट इनटू दैट स्पेस, एंड वी थिंक वी हैव अ पेडिग्री, हमारे पास रिसर्च कैपेबिलिटी है। हम ऐसे ही फंड लॉन्च नहीं करते हैं। लास्ट हमारा फंड लॉन्च था 2019 में, 4 साल के
Mm-hmm.
बाद हम नया फंड लेके आए हैं, और हमारे पास सिर्फ 11 प्रोडक्ट है अब तक, ये 12वां प्रोडक्ट है। सो क्वांटम कभी भी, जब भी कोई रिसर्च कैपेबिलिटी नहीं होगी तो लॉन्च नहीं करता है। जब भी हम लगता है कि मार्केट में एक नीड है, एक वैल्यू ऐड कर सकते हैं, और हमारे पास वो एबिलिटी है वो डिलीवर करने के लिए, तभी हम वो लॉन्च करते हैं। सो ओवरऑल तुम्हें आपको लगता है कि हम वो सही पार्टनर हैं आपके लिए स्मॉल कैप स्पेस के लिए, देन प्लीज टू लुक एट अस।
Okay, great. So yes, as you said, lots of vulnerability, lots of risk in individual stocks. So एक individual investors के लिए, and that too who do not have probably too much exposure and understanding of the market, you will find it very difficult to, and again, आजकल जिस तरीके से social media and all चल रहा है, so instead of investing individually on stocks, I think it's better to choose a mutual fund. Now there are two questions. One is how to select the right mutual fund. As you said, there are a lot many small caps. Now, usually, एक investors क्या करते हैं कि we go and look at some of the websites and see the return last 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 3 years return. And also हम लोग star mark देख के invest कर लेते हैं. But is it the right criteria? For example, NFO like you, you won't be rated as of now, right? So in
Correct.
that case, how an investor will take the judgment कि मुझे भाई क्वांटम पे जाना है, तो कौन सा फैक्टर्स देखना चाहिए उनको?
कोई भी फंड मैनेजर सिलेक्ट करने के लिए 4 पीस होते हैं कि उनकी
हम्म
फिलॉसफी क्या है,
हम्म
उनके कौन पीपल है, व्हाट आर द पीपल बिहाइंड दैट फिलॉसफी, उनके क्या
हम्म
प्रोसेस है, और उनकी क्या फोर्थ पीस परफॉर्मेंस। और हमें लगता है कि परफॉर्मेंस ही नहीं होता है, प्रेडिक्टेबिलिटी ऑफ परफॉर्मेंस होता है।
करेक्ट।
जिनका आप बोल सके कि आपको समझ में आता है कि मार्केट ऐसा कर रहा है ना, तो मेरा फंड मैनेजर आज ऐसा करता होगा, उसे
हाँ।
बोलते हैं प्रेडिक्टेबिलिटी ऑफ परफॉर्मेंस। खाली परफॉर्मेंस तो क्या है, कोई साइकिल आपके लिए अच्छा है तो आप अच्छा परफॉर्म करेंगे, खराब है तो थोड़ा खराब परफॉर्म करेंगे। वो ऊपर नीचे तो होने वाला है परफॉर्मेंस, मगर रेटिंग्स पे ना चाहिए। रेटिंग्स काफी ट्रांजिटरी होती हैं ओवरऑल। समझो अगर 2016 से 17-18 का पीरियड है, उसमें मेरे को लगता है अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ नहीं है, मैं पार्टिसिपेट नहीं कर रहा हूँ, मैं कंजर्वेटिव कंपनीज में बैठा हूँ। सो इट्स नॉट दैट आई एम रॉन्ग, आई हैव बीन राइट इन दैट पीरियड। मतलब मार्केट में लिक्विडिटी उतनी है
हम्म
कि स्टॉक प्राइस ऊपर जा रहे हैं, और मेरा कंजर्वेटिवनेस मेरे को रिस्क मैनेज करने में मदद कर रहा है ओवरऑल। बट अभी जो स्मॉल कैप स्पेस है, वहां पे हम बुल मार्केट देख रहे हैं, और ऐसे बुल मार्केट में सभी सभी फंड मैनेजर अच्छे अच्छे परफॉर्मेंस दिखेंगे। सो दे विल बी
हम्म
परफॉर्मिंग वेल अक्रॉस, बिकॉज वी आर हैव बीन इन अ बुल मार्केट लास्ट 2 years।
हम्म
मगर इसमें देखना चाहिए कि क्या वो प्रोसेस से डिविएट हो रहे हैं कि नहीं। अगर मान लीजिए आपने जो हिस्टोरिकल ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड देखा था, उसमें उनके पास 100 स्टॉक थे पोर्टफोलियो में, आज वही
हम्म
पोर्टफोलियो में साइज बढ़ने की वजह से 200 स्टॉक हो गए हैं। तो आपने जो ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड देखा था 100 स्टॉक वाला, जो 1% वेट पे था, आज आधा परसेंट वेट हो गया है हर एक स्टॉक का। तो उनकी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स चेंज हो गई है। तो जो फंड में लगता है आपको कि कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स चेंज हो गई हैं, हमें लगता है कि उनका जो ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड था, इट्स नॉट रियली रियली रेलेवेंट इवन टुडे,
हम्म
उनकी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स चेंज हो गई है। ओवरऑल जानिए कि प्रोसेस क्या है, क्या ये फंड मैनेजर रिस्क जो लेता है कैलकुलेट करके लेता है कि ज्यादा रिस्क लेता है।
हम्म
ज्यादा रिस्क आने से लोगों को लगता है कि रिटर्न ज्यादा आएगा, मगर ऐसा नहीं होता है। ज्यादा ज्यादा रिस्क, रिटर्न के लिए ज्यादा रिस्क तो लेना ही पड़ेगा, बट ज्यादा रिस्क लूंगा उसका मतलब नहीं कि ज्यादा रिटर्न भी आएगा। इट्स नॉट
हम्म
ऑलवेज ट्रू इन दैट सेंस। आपको ध्यान में रखना चाहिए कि उनके प्रोसेस क्या है। मेनली आप प्रोसेस इवेल्युएट कर सकते हैं बराबर से, उनको देख
हम्म
सकते हैं, उनका पोर्टफोलियो देख सकते हैं कि वो लोग ट्रू टू मैंडेट हैं, लिक्विडिटी रिस्क नहीं ले रहे हैं, वो सब ध्यान में रख के आपको इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए।
हम्म
तो ओवरऑल आई थिंक अगर एनएफओ है, उनका ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड नहीं है, मगर आप जानते हो फंड हाउस का पेडिग्री क्या है, उनकी रिसर्च कैपेबिलिटी क्या है, वो क्या ज्यादा रिस्क लेते हैं कि कैलकुलेटेड रिस्क लेते हैं जहाँ नीडेड है। जैसे स्टॉक प्राइस में, जब स्टॉक में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, तभी भी हम रिस्क लेते हैं, राइट। हम अजम्पशंस होते हैं हमारे कि कंपनी कैसी ग्रो होगी, उनके कैश फ्लोज कैसे आएंगे, उनकी प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी कैसे आएगी, उसके हिसाब से हम इन्वेस्ट करते हैं। वो एक रिस्क अलग है, वो हर एक फंड मैनेजर को लेना पड़ता है। मगर उसके अलावा क्या मैं लिक्विडिटी से चैलेंज कर रहा हूँ, क्या मैं क्योंकि क्या होता है कि आपको ट्रांजैक्टेबल एनएवी नहीं दे पाते हो फंड्स। फंड्स का
हम्म
क्या होता है, ट्रांजैक्टेबल एनएवी आपको देना, जो आप पेपर में आज तक का प्रॉफिट देख रहे हैं, आप रिडेम्पशन डालें तो वही प्रॉफिट में कन्वर्ट होके आपको मिलना चाहिए, उसे बोलते हैं ट्रांजैक्टेबल एनएवी। ऐसा नहीं
हम्म
होना चाहिए कि आप रिडेम्पशन डाले, वो फंड में प्रॉफिट देख के रिडेम्पशन डाले, मगर आपके सबके रिडेम्पशन की वजह से वो स्टॉक गिर जाए, बिकॉज वो फंड हाउस बेच रहा है कि उनको कैश देना है आपको। तो उस वजह से वो जो रियलाइज और नोशनल प्रॉफिट है, रियलाइज प्रॉफिट में कन्वर्ट नहीं होता है। जो पेपर पे था वो पेपर पे ही रहता है, आपको एक्चुअल में काफी कम मिलता है। तो ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए।
ओके।
ओवरऑल
नाउ
लिक्विडिटी
हम्म
वो मानिए में बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, और लिक्विडिटी ध्यान में रखिए हर एक फंड का, स्मॉल कैप स्पेस में स्पेशली बहुत जरूरी है।
बहुत जरूरी है। वेरी गुड, आई थिंक वेल सेड। नाउ देखिए अगेन, let's we have spoken about what is the prospect, we have spoken about, discussed about the growth potential.
Yes.
As you said, 4 years looks everything good, p expansion, earning growth, everything looks very good. And but again, exit, now my question is with respect to exit, क्योंकि जब स्मॉल कैप, मिड कैप, माइक्रो कैप उसका डाउन टर्न आता है, वो बहुत वॉलेटाइल होता है,
Correct.
बहुत बहुत जोर से गिरते हैं. So what are
Mhm.
the signs that one can, again you said the 1 lakh 1.8 lakh crore AUM in the small cap sector, right? And it's going to
Yes,
go even further going ahead. So
correct.
ये कौन सा साइन है that we should always keep in mind कि warning bell बजने लगे हैं अभी, time to probably trim down my small cap का portfolio धीरे धीरे से. So can you tell us what are the earning signals, what are the signals?
या मेनली अगर अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ नहीं देख रहे हैं ना, जैसे
Hmm.
स्टॉक प्राइसेस का पीई बहुत बढ़ने लगता है, जैसे हमने 2016-18 में देखा था कि
Too much of PE
बहुत
expansion.
सारा लिक्विडिटी था और पीई एक्सपैंड हो रहा था, अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ नहीं आ रहा था। तो वैसे फेजेस काफी अच्छे होते हैं और आई थिंक यू कैन रिलाई ऑन द फंड मैनेजर कि इतना
Hmm.
बड़ा स्पेस है वो सेगमेंट में कि वो फंड मैनेजर वैसे ओवर हीटेड जगह से निकल के ऐसी जगह पे चले जाएंगे जहाँ रीजनेबल वैल्यूएशंस है, क्योंकि
Okay.
कोई ना कोई पॉकेट तो होगा जिसमें रिलेटिवली बेटर वैल्यूएशंस होंगे, बेटर प्रॉस्पेक्ट्स होंगे, तो उसमें वो ट्रांसलेट कर देते हैं, जो ओवर हीटेड है वो बेच के कंफर्ट जोन्स में चले जाते हैं। सो ओवरऑल आपको लगता है कि आपका फंड मैनेजर वो कर पाता है, तो आपको वो फंड में रहना चाहिए, फंड मैनेजर को सौंप दीजिए, क्योंकि आपका एलोकेशन 10-15% रख रहे हैं, तो ऑलवेज
Hmm.
मेंटेन रखिए और फंड मैनेजर आपको जो वैल्यूएशन
Hmm.
ऊपर नीचे होता है वो संभाल लेगा, क्योंकि वो हमेशा वो ट्रैक करते हैं, सो दे कैन
Hmm.
बी इन दैट पोजीशन कि आपको बेरिश मार्केट में भी थोड़ा डिसेंट रिटर्न ला के दे सकते हैं, क्योंकि कोई ना कोई अपॉर्चुनिटी, कोई ना कोई एरिया होगा जो ग्रोथ होता होगा, अभी भी वैल्यूएशन रीजनेबल होंगे, तो स्ट्रॉन्ग रिसर्च चाहिए वो आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए,
Hmm.
दैट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। सो आई विल से लीव इट ऑन टू द फंड मैनेजर, उनको संभालने दे रहे हैं तो उनके भरोसे वो आप संभालने
Hmm.
दीजिए उनको।
Okay. Now, how many small cap fund, or for that matter, large cap in my portfolio should have? अगर मेरे को large cap मान लीजिए 30% I am allotting to large cap, तो कितना फंड होना चाहिए? Similarly in the small cap, 15% 20% मैं allot कर रहा हूँ मेरा fund investment small cap. How many funds it should be distributed among?
श्योर। सो एक कॉन्सेप्ट होता है कि डाइवर्सिफिकेशन वर्सेस ओवर डाइवर्सिफिकेशन। सो
हम्म.
डाइवर्सिफिकेशन करना चाहिए, वो बहुत जरूरी है, स्प्रेड करिए आपके इन्वेस्टमेंट्स काफी अलग अलग
हम्म.
फंड्स में, मगर ओवर डाइवर्सिफिकेशन जब भी होता है ना, तभी आपके रिटर्न्स कॉम्प्रोमाइज होने लगते हैं। जैसे हम स्मॉल कैप फंड्स के पोर्टफोलियो में देख रहे हैं, 100-200 स्टॉक ले हैं, ओवर डाइवर्सिफिकेशन हो रहा है। ओवर डाइवर्सिफिकेशन मतलब आपका कन्विक्शन बेट्स, रिसर्च बेट्स नहीं आ रहे हैं, तो आपका
हम्म.
रिटर्न्स कॉम्प्रोमाइज होने की संभावना ज्यादा है ऐसे ऐसे टाइम पे। सो ओवरऑल आई थिंक विद इन एनी स्पेस, टेक लार्ज कैप, मिड कैप, स्मॉल कैप, हमारा मानना है 8 से 9 फंड से ज्यादा नहीं होने चाहिए पोर्टफोलियो में, और जितना एलोकेशन आपका लार्ज कैप में होना चाहिए, मिड कैप में होना चाहिए, वो आपको डिसाइड करना है, बट हमारा मानना है कि आपका जो बेस होता है इक्विटी एलोकेशन का, वो लार्ज कैप्स होना चाहिए, और बेस
हम्म.
हमेशा बड़ा होता है, दैट इज द फाउंडेशन ऑफ योर
हम्म.
इक्विटी इन्वेस्टमेंट जर्नी। तो ओवरऑल जो फाउंडेशन है वो काफी बड़ा रखिए, लार्ज कैप्स बड़ा एलोकेशन होगा, मिड कैप्स उसके ऊपर का जगह होगा, एक ट्राइंगल
हम्म.
समझ लीजिए, और उसके
बिल्कुल.
ऊपर स्मॉल कैप बहुत छोटा जगह होगा, 10-15%, उससे थोड़ा बड़ा मिड कैप्स 25-30%, और बाकी जो भी बचता है इट शुड बी द बेस फाउंडेशन, वो लार्ज कैप्स होगा।
वाओ, आपने एक बहुत विजुअल डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन, एक विजुअली कह दिया कि हाउ द पोर्टफोलियो स्ट्रक्चर शुड लुक लाइक. इट्स रियली इंटरेस्टिंग. सो चिराग, कंक्लूडिंग, एक तो मेरा पर्सनल क्वेश्चन है. आई हैव अ पोर्टफोलियो ऑफ अराउंड 15-16 stocks, right? And I have got even small cap funds in my portfolio as well. My small caps funds are doing much better, and my stock portfolio is not doing well. वो ऊपर जाता है फिर वापस वहीं आते हैं. तो what do you think as an investor? You tell me, should I remove my equity portfolio direct or convert them to directly mutual fund portfolio? What should I do? I think similar question काफी सारे लोगों का माइंड में भी हो सकता है, इसीलिए
करेक्ट,
आई थिंक इट
करेक्ट।
विल represent all those people.
नीरज, आप तो एक्सपर्ट हो इन्वेस्टमेंट में, आपकी ये हालत है, तो आई थिंक इन्वेस्टर्स को समझ जाना चाहिए कि कहाँ जाना चाहिए। सो ओवरऑल हमें लगता है कि जिसके पास नॉलेज, टाइम, इंक्लिनेशन नहीं है, तो आप जब भी इन्वेस्ट करते हो अपने आप इन्वेस्ट नहीं कर रहे हो, आप स्पेक्यूलेट कर रहे हो। सो
Mhm.
स्पेक्यूलेट ना कीजिए, इन्वेस्ट कीजिए। सो आई थिंक रादर देन आप खुद करें, क्योंकि आपका पैसा कभी नीचे जा सकता है, आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट्स कभी नीचे जा सकता है, आपको मालूम भी नहीं पड़ेगा, बिकॉज you don't know about that company enough. हमारे पास एनालिस्ट होते हैं जो ट्रैक करते हैं कंपनीज डे इन एंड डे आउट, और कंपनीज के टॉप पे रहते हैं ताकि उनको सब मालूम पड़े कि कंपनीज में क्या हो रहा है। एंड कभी भी जो रिस्क, अगर देर आर वी आर नॉट गॉड्स कि हमारा कॉल हमेशा राइट जाएगा, हमें हमसे भी गलती होती है, मगर गलती से हम सीखते हैं कि क्या गलत गलत हुआ और जल्दी से उसको रेक्टिफाई करने की ट्राई करते हैं। हमारे अजम्पशंस भी रॉन्ग जा सकते हैं, मगर जब भी रॉन्ग जाते हैं हम उसको रिविजिट करते हैं एट पीरियोडिकल इंटरवल्स, और जब भी हमें लगता है कि हम रॉन्ग जा रहे हैं, हम वो स्टॉक के साथ इमोशनली बाइंडेड नहीं होते हैं, हम उसे बेच देते हैं। हमें लगता है कि कहीं भी गलत हो रहा है, ये स्टॉक गलत आ गया पोर्टफोलियो में, तो हम उसे बेच देते हैं। दैट इज वेरी वेरी डिफिकल्ट एक इन्वेस्टर के हिसाब से। सो दैट इज वेयर इन्वेस्टर फॉल इन द ट्रैप, वो इमोशनली लॉस बुक नहीं कर पाते। सो ओवरऑल दैट इज बीन अ बिगेस्ट इश्यू दैट वी हैव सीन विद इन्वेस्टर्स, कि उनकी गलत, मालूम है कि गलत इन्वेस्टमेंट आ गया है, फिर भी वो अपने प्राइस के लिए रुकेंगे इंस्टेड ऑफ गोइंग इनटू द नेक्स्ट बिग अपॉर्चुनिटी दैट दे आर सीइंग। सो आई थिंक जब भी खुद से कर रहे हैं ये सब रिस्क बहुत ज्यादा होते हैं, तो अपने आप से ना कीजिए। जैसे आप खुद से मेडिकेशन नहीं लेते हैं, राइट? आप कुछ भी बीमारी है तो डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं, उसी तरह म्यूचुअल फंड्स एक डॉक्टर के जैसे हैं, आप उनके पास जाइए।
आपका एग्जाम्पल इतना सुंदर था कि मैंने नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन मैंने भूल ही गया व्हाट मतलब बट लवली, आई थिंक वेल सेड। आपने बहुत ही बढ़िया बात कहे हैं कि सेल्फ मेडिकेशन इज वन ऑफ द रीजन व्हाई यू नो you know uh, people are developing resistance to antibiotics and it's killing people actually. So instead,
Absolutely.
go to a professional doctor, get prescription drugs, medicine for you, and do proper treatment. And the same applies in mutual fund investing as well. Investing in our investing life as well.
Yes.
Going ahead, closing. Just give your closing remark as to what एक normal, एक new, एक aspiring investor should do at this point of time, taking into account all the things that's happening in the world,
Sure.
geopolitical, economy, Indian elections, everything. What should be the main
Sure.
focus?
सो अगर देखिए तो 1980 से अभी तक इंडिया में अलग अलग गवर्नमेंट्स आई, इंडिया में क्या नहीं हुआ, फ्लड, फेमाइंस, असैसिनेशंस, वॉर, सब कुछ हो चुका है, मगर इंडिया का रियल जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट 6.2% पर एनम हो रहा है ऑन एन एवरेज।
Mm-hmm.
और 6.2% में इन्फ्लेशन ऐड कर लीजिए तो हम 11-12% नॉमिनल जीडीपी पे ग्रो हुए हैं, एंड दैट हैज ट्रांसलेटेड टू रिटर्न्स ऑफ 14-15% फॉर इन्वेस्टर्स। सो हमें नहीं लगता है आके 10-20 साल में वो चेंज हो रहा है।
Mm-hmm.
तो आपको इन्फ्लेशन से काफी ज्यादा रिटर्न इक्विटी मार्केट्स दे सकते हैं, प्रोवाइडेड आपका होराइजन 10-15-20 साल हो। आई थिंक वो साल अगर आप इन्वेस्ट करें, आई थिंक इट इज अ ट्रिमेंडस ग्रोथ पीरियड अहेड फॉर इंडिया। वी आर वेरी वेरी बुलिश ऑन द प्रोस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ इंडियन इकोनॉमी। तो इंडियन मार्केट्स एक बहुत बड़ा एवेन्यू है आपकी वेल्थ क्रिएशन के लिए। तो आई थिंक इंडियन इक्विटी मार्केट्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए ओवरऑल। एंड आई थिंक विद इन द इक्विटी मार्केट स्मॉल कैप एक बहुत बड़ा अपॉर्चुनिटी सेट है। जैसे रेगुलेशंस है अभी, जैसे बाइफर्केशन हुआ है मार्केट कैप्स का, वहां पे बहुत बड़ा अपॉर्चुनिटी सेट है। सो आपके इन्वेस्टमेंट्स में आपको लगता है कि आपका रिस्क एपेटाइट है, या
Mm-hmm.
आपके फाइनेंशियल एडवाइजर से हेल्प लीजिए, उनको लगता है रिस्क एपेटाइट है, तो इन्वेस्ट कीजिए स्मॉल कैप में। आई थिंक दैट विल रिवॉर्ड यू हैंडसमली, बट इंश्योर आप वो स्पेस समझे। और जब तक नहीं समझते हैं, एक थोड़ा सा एलोकेशन 10-15% रखिए वो स्पेस में, एंड आई थिंक यू विल बी रिवॉर्डेड। बट जब भी स्मॉल कैप में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, ध्यान रखिए कि आपका फंड मैनेजर फंड स्टॉक सिलेक्शन के अलावा कोई अलग रिस्क तो नहीं ले रहा है। जैसे लिक्विडिटी रिस्क, गवर्नेंस रिस्क, बहुत बड़े रिस्क होते हैं स्मॉल कैप्स में, तो ऐसे फंड के साथ जाइए तो ये सब रिस्क को एड्रेस करता है। और आपको लगता है कि आपका फंड वो रिस्क को एड्रेस नहीं करता है, उसमें इलिक्विडिटी है, उसमें गवर्नेंस रिस्क है, तो आज मौका है आपको शिफ्ट करने के लिए। एंड प्लीज कंसिडर द क्वांटम स्मॉल कैप फंड फॉर दैट। थैंक यू
Lovely.
नीरज, विद दैट नोट, थैंक यू सो मच।
It's a wonderful talking to you. Quite a good, insightful discussion. Thank you, Chirag. And looking forward to meet you next time. And we'll discuss about another topic in a very, very exciting way. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure, will be my pleasure, नीरज, थैंक यू।
Thank you. Bye.